Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here at the Riga Aviation Forum. My name is Calitis. I am the Chief Operations Officer for airBaltic. And today I'm going to give you a presentation regarding our experience during this very special, unprecedented, unseen time of COVID-19, a time that left our operations fully stopped and then created challenges for us to get back to operations. I'll spend the time to tell you what we experienced, what challenges we faced, and what things we had to consider to get back to operations. But let's go back to the start of it all, when COVID hit and international air travel to Latvia was stopped, and we came to a full standstill. Riga Airport was the place where we parked 38 of our aircraft, our full fleet, and for the first time ever, all 38 aircraft were in Riga and were parked and not flying. And here in the video, we see some pretty dramatic shots of a very sunny Latvia at the time, but actually very eerie and very unpleasant view of having all these aircraft not doing what they should be doing in terms of flying. And this was the situation that we faced in March, and now had to find a way to work within this new situation and deal with these 62 days of not flying. The first thing that we realized was that once we restart flying, is that the airline would be different, and it would be different in the way that we would have much less aircraft to operate. We would have to be smaller, we would have to be more efficient, and we would have to do things differently. And this meant that since our fleet was going to be smaller, we would have to also downsize the workforce that was with us. Before COVID, we had over 1,700 employees at airBaltic, and after COVID, we came back with about 1,000 people. Directly impacted the most were our crew. We had over 350 pilots before COVID, and already in March, we took the decision that we had to reduce this number, and we reduced it down to 200. You can see on the chart proportionately that was 45% of our pilots were let go, lost their jobs. Also similarly, our cabin crew had the same number of people leaving proportionately, and also our administration, our office staff were also not unaffected, and we had to reduce those numbers. Some success factors for this downsizing was to maintain a very clear and transparent process, talking to all the stakeholders, talking to the employees, keeping the lines of communication open, and also working with the labor groups. Of course, at the time it was unpleasant, and no one wants to lose their job, but we also made it clear, we made it fair in terms of saying that you'll have a good social package on leaving, and also a rehire guarantee to come back to the company when things get better and when we start our growth again. On the far right, you can see the line for our technical staff is significantly different than for our flight crew or our crew, and I'll mention that in a few slides in terms of what the impact was on our maintenance group. During the shutdown, we did do some flights. These weren't scheduled flights, but these were special flights. I'll mention the cargo flights that we did. This was humanitarian and medical flights to bring medical supplies into Latvia. The logistic chains had broken down throughout the world, and this was the only way to bring supplies into the country. We made flights in a way that is not the way that the aircraft was designed. We used the full passenger space of the aircraft to fill up with cargo equipment. We even used the overhead lockers as to put the boxes in below the seats and so on. And by doing so, we were able to bring on each flight over 1 million surgical masks into Latvia. I remember the first flight being probably the most dramatic. At the time of arrival in Latvia from China with 1 million masks, Latvia's biggest hospital was down to its last 10,000 masks. So with these flights, we were able to make an impact not just for the aviation sector, but do something very important for the country. It was a direct flight to the western part of China, so we could fly it direct, but we had to have extra long duty time for the crew so that they would not have to stay in China, and we had to take more people than we normally would to do this flight. This was coordinated with the Civil Aviation Authority. They were very supportive to find a solution for this very non-traditional type of flight. Importantly, we also did repatriation flights for our citizens abroad. When COVID hit, the borders were shut down, effectively locking people out from Latvia. And through a special process, receiving a special permission from the Transport Minister, and in coordination with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we were able to do special flights to bring our citizens back to Latvia, and also other EU citizens back to their homes. This was also very special for the crew operating. Not only did they have to wear the highest level of protection, personal protection, you can see in the picture they have the full suit on, face mask, gloves, high-level FFP3 level mask during the flight. This was to protect them, and they had to wear this during the entire flight that they were operating with the passengers on board. It's not easy to work with such equipment on, but nonetheless, we had volunteers, we had the cabin crew waiting in line to actually fly and operate and contribute in this way to our operations. Maintenance had a very important role, and actually their job actually became bigger during the shutdown. So the aircraft were not flying, and their job actually was, their job load became even larger than it was before. The first task that maintenance had was to find a way to actually park all these aircraft. 38 aircraft at Riga airport physically was a challenge, and they were able to find a way to distribute the aircraft throughout the apron and locate them. The second thing was to put them into a storage condition, but it wasn't clear for how long they would have to be in storage. Initially, it was a light level of storage, then it eventually went into a full type of storage procedure where all covers, all areas were being sealed, different equipment was being shut down, was being taken off of the aircraft. We had to have a regular maintenance routine of running systems on board to keep them healthy. For example, engines had to be operated every few weeks to make sure that all the systems are getting the proper lubrication and working properly. So their job actually increased during this storage time. And finally, when it was clear we were going back into operations, then a big job of bringing the aircraft out of storage was undertaken. This included having to follow all the manufacturer guidelines in terms of what's needed, including a test flight being conducted before each aircraft was put into passenger service. We didn't release all aircraft at once. This was done progressively, and so step by step we built up the fleet, and I'm happy to say we have all 22 aircraft back into operation now. A bit about the network post-COVID. So this was our resumption of passenger operations as of the 25th of May. So we had 2 months of shutdown, and then in the 25th of May we started with our core network. It was clear the priority at the outset was to fly to our hubs, to the main central airports within Europe, and we started with a very small operation, but concentrated on these important gateways. A month later, you can see our network has already expanded quite considerably. So we're not only doing our hubs, we're doing important major European cities, plus we've also added some leisure destinations, because there is the desire, the motivation for people from the Baltics, from Latvia, to also continue and have some leisure destinations. 1 month later, our expansion is going according to plan. We're bringing aircraft back online, and we're flying more and more destinations. And you can see that we have the first red routes coming in. These are routes that are being cancelled due to COVID levels reaching unacceptable levels and not being allowed to fly according to government regulations. And now we're into August, and you can see that the red routes, the cancelled routes, are almost equal to the green routes. And as of yesterday, we have a significant part of our network being cancelled because of COVID. This is temporary, and this illustrates how dynamic the situation is, how we have to readjust our operations, how we have to deal with passengers. And we're confident that in the coming weeks and months, we'll get back to a very stable and good growth path in terms of the routes that we fly. The key decision during the shutdown was to go to a single fleet. We had 3 aircraft types. Before COVID, our plan was to get to 1 aircraft type in 2023, but we accelerated this, and as of 2020, already 25th of May, we have 1 aircraft fleet. We have a good growth path in terms of moving to 50 aircraft by 2024, and this is all based on the A220. The A220 is our key advantage. It's the best aircraft, it's the most modern aircraft, and it's perfectly suited for this post-COVID time. We can operate flights at a lower cost level than our competition. We need less passengers on board to break even compared to our competition, and it is the youngest fleet in Europe. We have an average age of below 3 years for the next 5 years of our fleet, going up to 50 aircraft. The new normal is something that we're still working on, and this is one of the important ideas, that the way that we have to operate, the rules and regulations we have to follow, are still in process, are still being created, and it's still a dynamic time for us. Already from first day, our crew are using masks, are distributing masks. Passengers have to wear masks on board. We give a care kit to each passenger, but how it will develop into the future, we'll see, and this is something that we're still a part of creating the new procedures. airBaltic signed a charter with EASA, the regulatory body of Europe, to use the best practices according to COVID procedures, and also give our input in terms of what is effective and what needs to be changed. So the procedures, the rules are still in a state of development, but airBaltic is there to be a part of it and to play its part to develop these procedures. A few last words about our pilots and training. One hidden surprise was our simulator and its important role in the post-COVID time. Last year we bought the simulator. We got it up and running in a record short amount of time, and in November 2019 it was operational. 3 months later, COVID hit, and because of this simulator, we were able to easily restart our operations. With the pilots being out for over 2 months of operations, they needed to be in the simulator before they could fly with our passengers. If we did not have the simulator here in Riga, our pilots would have had to travel out abroad, which was difficult at that point in time, and I'm positive that our operations would have been delayed in terms of being able to do a restart. We had the simulator in Riga. We were able to get our pilots back into proficiency, back up to a safe level through the training using the simulator, and now we're operating the simulator 24 hours a day, training new pilots onto this aircraft type. These are pilots that have been working at airBaltic but flying on the different aircraft fleets, and now they're being transferred to the A220, which is the fleet going further. Importantly, we have also the Pilot Academy, which is the first part of the training chain of the pilot career. The Pilot Academy was also shut down during the COVID crisis, but since May, it's been back in operation, and the pilots at the Pilot Academy continue to do their training. We opened the maintenance hangar in Liepāja for the Pilot Academy right as COVID was starting. And this maintenance facility not only keeps our 8 aircraft airworthy, but will also keep other Diamond aircraft as we're a Diamond service center for the Baltic region. We will get more aircraft, we will continue more training at the Pilot Academy, and importantly, you'll see that the Pilot Academy students will be the future workforce for airBaltic as well. Here we have the number of pilots we need per year. It's based on our growth plan of the pilots that we take, the aircraft that we take in over the next 5 years, going up to 50 aircraft. On the restart, we have 200 pilots in our company. By the end of the year, early next year, we'll be rehiring the first pilots from the ones that were downsized. But also already in 2021-22, pilot graduates from Pilot Academy will come into our workforce. And you can see that over the years, the green part, which is Pilot Academy pilots, will become the majority of our pilot group. So the Pilot Academy has an important role and will play a very important role into the future. So with this positive growth path on this slide, I'd like to just summarize that the COVID time has presented a unique situation that none of us had faced before, with having the fleet stand on the ground, not doing flights for over a few months. We were able to do some pretty dramatic things, and with good planning, we got back into the air. The situation in Europe is still unclear, not only in terms of how things will develop commercially, but also how the regulations will change and what will come into force into the future with regards to COVID and personal safety on board. But airBaltic, with its new fleet, with the proper size in terms of our workforce, and the training capabilities that we have, we're positioned very well operationally to support the commercial growth of airBaltic. Thank you.